Welcome to this Tutor to You Sociology topic video on gender differences in education, focusing on differences in self-esteem. One of the external factors that influence educational achievement is the level of self-esteem and self-confidence in their ability that male and female pupils have, often as a result of their gender socialization. The level of self-esteem and self-confidence a student has influences their ability to perform to their potential. Overestimating one's own ability can lead to complacency and a lack of concentration on work, whilst underestimating your own ability may have negative impacts such as feeling pressured, having low self-worth, but is likely to mean you focus more on trying to improve. Pupils' self-esteem is not always determined by themselves though, with interactions with teachers influencing self-esteem. Teachers who are approachable are more likely to build self-esteem in their students, whilst those that reject pupils based upon behaviours or perceived effort may be damaging that pupil's self-esteem despite outward appearances. So how does self-esteem differ between males and females? Sociologists suggest that as a result of less control over boys' behaviour in the period of gender socialisation, they develop higher self-esteem than girls. Girls' behaviours are often excessively controlled during gender socialisation, and behaviours that may be associated with males are seen as not being very ladylike, while boisterous behaviour is often excused when exhibited by males as boys being boys. Barber suggested that this leads to boys having an overconfidence in their performance in education, with many boys leaving revision or coursework to the last minute as they believe themselves to be capable of producing good work nevertheless. Girls, on the other hand, are more likely to underestimate their own ability, which leads to psychological pressures to get things done, be more meticulous in drafting work, and seeking help when they're struggling from teachers. Once in school, however, boys' overconfidence hampers their ability to achieve. Boisterous behaviour is rejected by the school, while girls' efforts to overcome their perceived lack of ability endear them to teachers as being more mature, and as a consequence they can get help and guidance when they need it, whereas boys are more likely to feel confident enough to try and achieve without any help. There's been a lot of research into the perceived differences in self-esteem and self-confidence between males and females, and firstly we're going to examine research into girls' self-esteem. Psychologists Licht and Dweck found that when conducting research into the psychological mindsets of pupils, that girls lacked confidence in their own ability. Francis argued that this lack of self-confidence is compounded by teachers focusing on the behaviour of boys in classrooms, albeit in a negative way. This reinforced ideas that girls were invisible within the classroom. When teachers did interact with girls, it was in a more positive manner than their interactions with boys, which helped them to achieve higher. Similarly, Sharp found that girls' aspirations had changed over time with the rise of feminism, and this led to an increasing confidence in education that they could achieve and have a good career. Further to this, Power et al. Found that girls had become more driven to succeed in education. However, this often led to them putting excessive pressure on themselves to achieve. The consequence of this is that the pressure on girls to achieve, coupled with underestimating their own ability, pushed girls into working harder to achieve good grades in exams. Boys may enter the education system with higher self-esteem than girls, but this does not appear to have a positive impact on their educational achievement. Stereotypical macho behaviours from boys are rejected by the education system, and as a consequence males often clash with those in authority in education. Boys are often seen as disruptive influences on the classroom due to the behaviours they have been socialised into. Rejection from teachers often leads to boys obtaining status from their peers. This leads to further clashes with teachers, whose expectations of boys will diminish, and they will not be as pushed as hard as the girls. This rejection from teachers, coupled with their own overconfidence, impacts on their educational achievement as they do not seek out teachers' help or approval and subsequently underachieve in comparison to their female counterparts. A further impact on the self-esteem of boys has been the crisis of masculinity, which we've discussed in previous videos. This has a fatalistic effect on boys, particularly those from the working classes, who reject education in favour of having their confidence reinforced through status from their peers. This can be seen in Willis's research, Learning to Labour, where the boys wanted to have a laugh rather than engage with teachers. The process of education can be argued to have a damaging effect on the self-esteem of boys, with rejection leading to fatalistic attitudes during their time in school. It appears from the research that the education system favours those with lower self-esteem, with girls showing less confidence but achieving higher than boys who display excessive confidence and underachieve. Some sociologists have suggested that the feminisation of education has become damaging to boys' self-esteem, and with increasing number of female teachers at all levels, boys are less likely to have positive male role models from which to learn appropriate behaviours for educational success. Of course, a counter to this argument is that role models in the 21st century should not have to be defined by their gender. Skelton and Francis are both critical of the way in which girls' self-esteem develops over their school life, suggesting that the demands on females in the education system have negative impacts on girls' long-term self-esteem, suggesting that many female pupils will never see themselves as being good enough to meet the higher expectations of their parents, teachers, and wider society. For boys, education can be seen as a way to erode the self-esteem, with them gaining negative attention for conforming to their gender roles. However, as we've seen in other videos, males still hold most of the power in society, and as a consequence, masculine traits such as ambition and confidence will ensure that males have an advantage due to being socialised into these traits. That concludes this Tutor to You Sociology topic video on gender differences in education, looking at differences in self-esteem. Thanks for watching.